Good day, dear students. In the previous class, we were talking about the old woman that Arun Kalatkar had seen and who started pestering him by holding on to his sleeves. We have also seen how he looks on and this old woman, and the way she is sticking on to him like a burr, and it is in a way something that will not go away. If you just shake it from your clothes, it sticks onto it, and these will have to be taken out, and so in a way it is kind of an irritation to you. Unless you take it out, it will start sticking onto you, constantly irritating you. So Arun Kalatkar brings in that simile of a burr in order to show us how persistent she is, and that persistence can be seen not like anything high, but it is like a burr and nothing more. So that much we have seen in the previous class. And she says, Arun Kalatkar continues with the portrayal of the old woman with the words, she won't let you go. You know how old women are. They stick to you like a burr. You turn around and face her with an air of finality. You want to end the farce. When you hear her say, what else can an old woman do on hills as wretched as this? So earlier you will also find that Kalatkar had already described the old woman, and he knows that she needs a 50 paise coin, and she won't ask you for 50 paise. She will only tell you that she will take you to the temple. But you will find that this is the dialogue with the people there. There are 6 major temples in Kolhapur, and you can visit all of them, and it is a horseshoe shrine, and he knows the way. And why should this woman offer to take him to that place when he knows the way? So finally, when she continued to stick onto him like a burr, you turn around and face her with an air of finality. You want to end the farce. With an air of finality, you are turning back to this woman, and you really want to end the farce. Why does he call this a farce? Because the two of them, the old woman as well as the poet, knows quite well that it is indeed a pretension for begging. She is not begging, she is keeping on to her self-respect, and he knows that she is begging, and she will not let you go, and so he is getting irritated. So he wants to send her off with the giving of the money. So maybe because of that he says, you want to end the farce. So the poet generalizes when he says, you know how old women are. Indeed, we all know how they are. They are persistent, and hence they are irritating, having the last word often. Kalatkar has another comparison for that. They stick to you like a bird. This is the comparison that he uses here. Those things from the grass that stick to your clothes, and it will not go at one shaking. Even if you shake it, you will have to pluck them from your clothes to remove it. That kind of persistence, that kind of a needle-like thing this burr has, that sharp edges, and so it will continue to be there in your clothes. So now he is trying to remove it in his own way, and to end the farce. This is very significant, because the poet as well as the old woman knows quite well that it is indeed a farce. It is just a pretension that of being a guy. And we have already seen how the poet describes this old woman. She is hobbling after him. He, a younger person, he is moving with a speed, and she is holding on to his sleeves and trying to keep up with the speed, and that is making her hobble. Maybe she had some frailty of the leg, but even that also can be the reason why she is hobbling along. The poet tolerated her like all Indians for some time, but as he says, this must end. So he turned and faced her with an air of finality. The heir of finality means he really wants to tell her to back off. I don't want a guy like that. To end the fast, the pretension that she is not actually begging but doing some work that earns money. This is the pretension that she keeps up. And the poet knew that the way she is asking or telling him that she will show him the way to the temple is just another pretension for begging. So the poet knew otherwise. He knows that this is indeed a farce. So between the poet and the old woman, there is indeed now a situation. We must call that a situation. So here you find that this is all a farce, and he wants to end the farce. How long can you continue with this kind of a pretension? So he says, when you hear her say, what else can an old woman do on hills as wretched as these? You look right at the sky, clear through the bullet holes she has for her eyes. So here he says that when you hear her say, that is, what else can an old woman do on hills as wretched as these? These hills are as wretched as anything, and an old woman can't do much here. The landscape is bereft of much greenery. There is not much cultivation because the main attraction is tourist attraction. Food there is really good for a tourist, and you will really enjoy visiting the different temples. 4 temples there, and it is in a way a city or almost a place where you have all these 6 temples, and these women will take you to one temple after the other, and maybe they will be able to tell you the history of that temple and about the deity and how to worship in such and such temple, things like that. So that is being a tourist guide. But you will find that the author, that is the poet, is a person who was born and brought up there. So he doesn't need a guide as she is offering her to be. So he is turning with a definite air. Maybe this turning, and we have no idea what he told her, and he heard her say, what else can an old woman do on hills as wretched as this? With the 6 temples and with a lot of people coming and going, she regards this place as a wretched place and for old woman. And this old woman is not finding it easy to lead a proper life there. So the only option left to her is that of begging, or the pretension of being a guide to the tourist centers, tourist places, in return for a little bit of money. Not the usual charge that the other guides tax you, but only just 50 paise, which is not much. But maybe in those days it is a great amount. It will get her a lot of things with that 50 paise. But here you find that the desperation of this old woman is there. The desperation that an old woman has no life on these hills, and so she can't earn money in any other manner. And why should she earn money? That's again a question, because the poet is not going too deep into that question, and he is just describing an old woman, and he is limiting his painting to this old woman and not to her background history or anything. The portrait is that of an old woman. She answers even before he asks, on hills as wretched as these, there is nothing an old woman can do. An old woman can't do anything else except beg. The landscape is bereft of anything, and there is not much that she can do there. It is indeed a tourist spot, as I told you earlier. And so you look right at the sky, clear through the bullet holes she has for her eyes. Naturally, when this woman says in this the term, when she uses the term wretched hills, indeed you look skyward, and the piercing sun is with the clear sky. The sun is so bright, and as she had seen through her eyes, as sharp. Her eyes are described as as sharp as bullet holes, the holes made by the bullet, which means that she is wounded. Of all things, to compare her eyes to a bullet hole brings about the sharpness and pain of the situation, of life itself. So here, this is something that the poet had not considered before. To him, it is just a pest or someone pestering him for money. This is just a situation which is encountered by almost all the tourists in maybe years back. But nowadays you won't find any beggars as such. You will find people trying to sell you something. Instead of begging, they will try to sell you something, like children in school uniform, ready to sell something and telling you that it is time for her or him to go to school, and he had to sell this before they go to school. So naturally your sympathy is with that person and you buy whatever that is the child is offering. Even though it is child begging is something that had been stopped for a long time, this is prevalent in a lot of cities, even in India. So the old woman, the old folks also join the crowd. The youngsters have a really better way, and they become proper guides, taking you around with a certain amount of money, which is in a way a job. But in this case, it is not like a job, or she pretends to be to have this job, but the poet as well as the old woman know quite well that it is not a job, it is exactly begging. And then when you are about to warn her off with a sharp word, you turn with that intention and immediately says, "What can I do, an old woman in this hills as wretched as these?" So that stops him. The words that he was about to utter stops, and you look at the sky and find there no solace. And it is the sky that the old woman had seen, and the sky is so clear through the bullet holes she has for her eyes. So instead of eyes, she has only bullet holes. The bullet may be the sun, the piercing rays of the sun, which shines so brightly, and it makes seeing him or looking at him impossible. So of all things to compare her eyes to, usually when you compare the eyes of a beautiful woman, you find any number of beautiful images to go with it. And if you are describing the eyes of an old woman also, you will find something similar. But to compare the eyes of the old woman to that of bullet holes, clear through the bullet holes she has for her eyes, the eyes are now like bullet holes. And so this brings about the sharpness and the pain of the situation and that of life itself. Here Arun Koladkar is indeed thinking about the different situations, and he continues about the situation of the people on the hillside in Kolhapur. So he says, "And as you look on, the cracks that begin around her eyes spread beyond the skin, and the hills crack, and the temples crack, and the sky falls." So as you look on to the face of this woman, after looking at the sun, you look on the face of the sun, the cracks that begin around her eyes spread beyond her skin. As an old woman and who had lived for a long time, the cracks start from the eyes, and those cracks spread to the face also, and to the whole of her body, the wrinkling of the skin, and the cracks that are there, which is indeed part of aging. And he knows that she is an old woman. We were already told by the poet that it is an old woman, and these are just a part of it, that cracks and everything. The poet, who is also an artist, notices the cracks around the eyes first, and then on the skin, and also find the cracks beyond this. Why should he find cracks beyond this? Everything is about to crumble. Everything is about to, when something crumbles, it falls, and it becomes useless. Suppose it is glass, when it starts crumbling, it is breaking and it falls and there is nothing more to it. So this old woman is at the end of her tether. She is breaking, and maybe this is the last resort for her. So the poetic imagination finds the crack in the pattern of life, in the cracks that begin around her eyes. The hills crack, the poet says. The temple built on the hill also crack, which means that this cry of poverty, this cry of helplessness from an old woman has got the power to make the hills appear cracking, and it also has got the power to make the temple built on the hills cracking, and the sky falls. Maybe it is over imagination, but there is the sky falling effect on the poet, because now the poet is able to see beyond this fragility, this helplessness, and that which he finds there makes him aware of the cracks in the pattern of the hillside, the cracks in the building of the temple, or in the temple, and even in the sky all around him. The poetic imagination flies high to describe the fall of the sky. The fall of the sky is something that is exaggerated, but even then it is like a shock to him, like the fall of the sky, because he thought of these people, these old people, and people coming after him to show the way to the temple as irritants, like a burr, sticking onto him like a burr. Yet he is so used to it, and so he just shoo them away like that. And so he is not giving that much of attention to the person that she is, instead of that she is regarded just as someone to turn away from. So such is the extent of the fissures caused by the cracks of poverty. So here he says the hills crack and the temples crack and the sky falls, and when the hills crack, when the temple cracks, the sky also crack, the sky falls in order to intensify the break. And with a plate glass clatter around the shatterproof crown, who stands alone, and you are reduced to so much small change in her hand. And again, the crack of the hills, the crack of the temples, they are all brought forward to this particular situation, to this woman. And with the plate glass clatter, the sound of the glass breaking around the shatterproof crown. The crown is another term for an old woman, and that crown is standing. She is shatterproof. He could find the wrinkles around her eyes and also the cracks beyond her skin, but beyond the crinkles of the skin, he is trying to see beyond her, and beyond her everything is cracking. The hills, the temples, and even the sky is falling, but this woman, this old woman with her wrinkles, she is standing there, and she is shatterproof. Shatterproof means she had overlooked, or she had survived the shatters of life, the cracks of life, the tragedies of life, and it is that which makes him turn towards this old woman with all his attention. The poet is indeed painting word pictures of this woman, and then he says, and you are reduced to so much small change in her hand. You are reduced to so much small change in her hand. As I told you earlier in the beginning, or earlier, that is at the beginning of the poem, she was asking for a 50 paise. The poet also understands that. The thing is that she is not asking for 50 paise. She is asking him that she can show him the way to the temple, and she is expecting him to pay her 50 paise. And 50 paise in those days can be had with 5 10 paise coins, or 2 25 paise coins, and again with 5 paise 10 paise coins, and that is called small change. And her small change, the small change that she has in her hand, which the others had paid, and the value of those coins is nothing to the poet or to any other person or to this tourist. You are a tourist because you have enough money to spend it on visiting the tourist spots. If you don't have money, you will not be traveling. Unless you just travel all by yourself without money, that kind of adventure traveling. But in this case, visiting a temple means you have undertaken a journey, and so you have spent money, which means again that you have money to spare. But not this woman. So when she says that what can an old woman like me do in these hills, he was suddenly struck by a great revelation. He understands that the hills do not stand a chance. The temples built on the hills even do not stand a chance. And even the sky also do not stand a chance against this woman who stands very firm on her resolution, and the resolution of trying to live or lead a proper life without begging and with proper self-respect. The poetic imagination is flying high, and he describes the fall of the sky, or he is about to do that, when he comes to the conclusion that when this woman remains there, shatterproof, all the others or everything remains so fragile, including the temple, the hills, and even the sky. They became so very fragile against this old crone, or this crone. Crone means old woman. This crone who remains shatterproof. Shatterproof. To describe a human being shatterproof, then you must have a high regard for that human being, especially an old woman. She is not a rich woman. She is not someone who had contributed much to the development of the society. She is not a woman who has got so much of hold on other people. She is a woman who leads her life, day-to-day life, in her own way. And she could have done any work, and that shows her willingness to do any work possible. But on these hills, this type of the hills that she describes as, there is nothing else a woman can do, an old woman can do, except this job of taking the people, the tourists to the temple, show them, and get money from them. So with this response from her, the poet reverts his opinion of this woman who had been like a burr with him, and now the irritation, everything just slips away, because as young people we don't have the tenacity, or to him they don't have his generation do not have the tenacity to hold on to life, the tenacity of this old woman, to hold on to life and to hold on to everything like a burr and not letting it go unless you are plucked forcibly from that and thrown away. And even when there is crashing or cracks all around us, the hills, when you find everything crumbling around you, when relationships, when everything, maybe your life itself and what you have built up, everything starts cracking, then you feel that indeed the sky is falling. But this woman, in spite of all the cracks, all the shattering that is happening around, she stands resolute, strengthy, and at the same time she is indeed a person who has got a lot of willpower, a lot of mental strength. And this the poet uses the term to describe this crone, shatterproof. This is exactly the term that he uses to describe this woman. And why this woman is shatterproof? Because she has got a lot of strength and the ability to survive, and in spite of the cracks, in spite of everything, in spite of the hills crack, there is calamity all around you. When religious belief starts cracking, when the sky falls, even through all this, the woman had the ability to survive. And seeing her with a new light, new eyes, the poet just changes his opinion of this woman. And this woman is nothing but the strong or the strength of the people, or the ability of such people to remain shatterproof when the whole thing or the whole world is shattering all around them. And now, when he, the young man, with all his pomp and splendor and his knowledge of the countryside or the hillside, turned to rebuke this old woman to end the fast of begging and also showing the tourist spots, which is another way of telling him that he is to give her money. About that, the poet now felt like much less than the small change in her hand. Small change in her hand means all paise and not a rupee or the higher denomination. And these are little things, and he felt as small as that. It is a beautiful way of humbling before this old woman who is no one. But at the same time, she is representing a lot. And so the poet is starting his tourist way, or his way to this temple, and he is not meeting the deity of the temple, but he gets an occasion to meet maybe the deity in this old woman, not in the temple or in the hills or in the sky, but in this particular woman who has got bullet eyes, the bullet cracks or the holes of a bullet in her for her eyes, with the cracks around her eyes, cracks on her skin, and cracks that spread to the other. To this woman he pays a homage, and he says that I felt much less than the small change that she has in her hand. That day's earnings altogether comes to the small change in her hand, which may not be maybe 2 or 3 rupees maximum, maybe much less, because that much her hand will hold, and all the little coins. And for us and to all of you who are living now, you don't have coins now. Maybe you have seen a 10 rupee coin or a 5 rupee coin, but 10 paise, 5 paise, 2 paise coin, you will find it only in the collector's item, or even a 25 paise, it is there, but even then you will find it only in a collector's item now. But in those days there were precious things to these people. So when you give 10 paise to a beggar, the beggar will not be angry, because 10 paise had its value then, and that value is indeed, maybe it may not be up to the notes or the higher denominations of the coin, but even then this is her life, and for her this is indeed sufficient. But what about the other people? What about the poet? What about these other people who are eagerly making or amassing money, more and more money? So in a way, the poet is not taking us to that path, but in a way he is telling us that this woman is shatterproof. To describe an old woman shatterproof needs much respect from the part of the speaker. And Arun Polatkar was in a way maybe paying tribute to this old woman by calling her a woman who is shatterproof. Though he uses the term thrown, which is indeed a usual term which is used for old woman, it is in a way he is trying to make this appear as if it is nothing, that this old woman is old and hobbling, and maybe in that manner he uses to compensate that kind of nature. He uses he pays the tribute by saying that she is shatterproof. So can we ever say that such and such people are shatterproof? We are not speaking about the kind of muscle power or anything, but we are speaking about the mental strength, or the ability to hold on to oneself when all around you everything is cracking down. It is that ability that we call as mental strength, or maybe it's the spiritual strength, and it is that the woman had. And Arun Polatkar is seeing beyond the cracks to her inner self, and there he finds not an old crone but a woman who is shatterproof. And all around him he could find cracks. Cracks means just not falling but about to fall, and fissures or even the cracks there, which means that it is not perfect. When you realize that such and such things are not perfect, you are disillusioned, and there begins your cracking. Okay, when you feel disillusioned about certain aspects, then cracks appear in your nature also, and in your mental ability also the cracks appear, and it is in this manner he imagines the world also. But this woman, in spite of the rejection, in spite of the feeling that this man is not going to pay her 50 paise, she is not asking for more than that 50 paise, and she is offering to do something for him, that is to take him around the temples as a tourist guide and show him all the places. And she is not directly asking for 50 paise but offering to take him around, and the poet knows that she is expecting 50 paise, and she has got a lot of small change in her hand. So when she said, what else can this an old woman do on this wretched hills? The hills are described by this old woman as a wretched place. If that is a condition, what can she really do? It is in this sense that he finds the real strength of this old woman, and her picture, the picture of this old woman is completed when the poet says that the hills are around her, and he felt like you are reduced to so much small change in her hand. You are reduced from the very high tomb or the very highway on which you are standing. On the stand from a pedestal, you are suddenly brought down to the small change in her hand. You are nothing with your life all set out, and you are nothing when you are going on a trip, and when you have so much of money. When you compare yourself to this old woman, you are nothing except this small change in her hand, not much valuable to anybody, only to her. So it is that you are reduced to, from your great concept of your own self as a great person who had done such and such things. Suddenly you are brought down by this aspect of this old woman, an old woman who is ready to do work to earn a living in spite of the adversities of life. The situation around her is not at all a suitable one, and there is that intense heat of the hills, and it is only during the rainy season they get the rain. Otherwise it is all extreme hot season. There is of course a winter, but even then the tourist season is only during the summer, and the summer is intense with its heat. And in spite of that, this woman is going up and down and trying to get the attention of one person or the other. Maybe she thought that this man, this poet, has got kindness in his eyes, and maybe this is the reason she held on to his sleeve, and maybe this is again the reason why she stuck to him like a burr, and this is also the reason why she found it in her to talk to him and close his mouth by saying, what else can an old woman do on these wretched hills? And that wording, those sayings really struck him, and it is from looking at this woman, her face, that he felt the cracks of the everywhere, cracking, the imperfection everywhere, except on this old woman's face and in her makeup, where she is very strong and she has got self-respect, and the fissures all around just do not affect her. It is falling like plate glass, that kind of shattering effect it has. That shattering is going on, and he can feel the shattering of all his preconceived notions about begging and about people undergoing a grand change, a great change. and he felt like being reduced to almost nothing. From a great height, he is now reduced to a person of no means or nothing. That kind of feeling he got when he faced this old woman. So here, Arun Kolatkar is talking to you more about the old woman and also about the place that he is visiting. So in this manner, the poet is drawing a picture of this old woman. You can see the cracks around her eyes. You can see the cracks on her skin. You can also imagine the cracks around the hills also. So through this word picture, he is painting a beautiful, painting a worthwhile picture of the scene, the hills with its temple background and everything having this cracks and the sky itself falling, and the only person shattered proof is this old woman. Maybe there is exaggeration there, but this is how he felt when faced with this old crone and how he felt by her words. And so he felt like having a humbling effect before the words of this woman, or when she spoke to him in this manner. So dear students, read the poem carefully and understand it. Enjoy the poem, and you are going to have a liking for Arun Kolatkar, and if so, start reading the other poems of his collection called Jejuri. Jejuri is also another place where, in Maharashtra near Pune, and this is these are two places which has a lot of temples and where you will find a lot of tourists come and visit. So maybe he is trying to bring in word pictures from going around, and the one picture that really attracted him most is brought to your eyes through the imagination. Through words, he is painting a picture of this old woman for us. So there are poets who are also painters, and their poems are really worth reading, where you'll find a lot of texture being introduced and described in proper manner, and that in itself will make the poem more like a painting rather than just a poem. Okay, Arun Kolatkar belongs to this category where you find the word pictures are more enhancing than the words themselves, and so this is more like seeing a picture, a painting, rather than just reading a poem. You have the pre-Raphaelites poets who use the same type of poems, and it is that which they are in the that which I am reminded of: the Blessed Damozel, Christina Rossetti, and the Rossetti brother, D.G. Rossetti, and the pre-Raphaelite movement, where they use the paintings, the colors of the time of before Raphael, the painter, and started bringing it in poems also. And Arun Kolatkar has a little bit of similarity with that. And even though the pictures that he paints is not beautiful, pretty pictures, they are realistic pictures, and it is that which you get from this poem, An Old Woman. Okay, thank you. See you again.